The prayers of 1.6 billion Indians dismissed by just one line, in fact just 7 words. The Vinesh Fogart appeal has been dismissed. That's all the Court of Arbitration for Sports has said in their initial judgment. Of course, you'll have a detailed judgment and then we can discuss that threadbare. But at the moment, Vinesh Fogart behind me with folded hands, as you can see here, that hasn't quite worked. Emotionally, I'm sure she's feeling let down. A lot of you are feeling let down. But if you look at this entire matter objectively, you'd have to say that this was on the cards, because you have to go back and look at all the verdicts that Court of Arbitration for Sports has given. And typically, the court always looks at the rule book. They look at the rule of the land and rule and decide and give their verdict based on that. Like, we as fans sometimes and athletes sometimes are emotionally attached to one particular thing, and we look at various other factors, valid factors at that, which I'll get into a little later. But the court has no scope for emotions. The court just looks at the rule book and takes a decision. We knew about this, and that's why I say the decision that has come, even though we are hoping against hope, the decision that has come was on the cards. Now, what is it? What was the number one argument that Vinesh Fogart? Of course, there were plenty of arguments presented, as we've been telling you on Sports Today, the human angle and so on and so forth. But the number one argument that they presented, which was more on a technicality, saying that, listen, if she fought in the prescribed weight category, which was below 50 on day 1, and reached the final, and then she deserves a silver medal. Okay, day 2 she was overweight. You dismiss her from playing the final, but give her that medal. Now, the problem with that is that the rules had taken care of even this scenario. The rules that were framed by UWW had taken care of this scenario. It mentioned at the start that even if the athlete is within the prescribed weight limit on day 1 and on day 2 is found to be above the weight limit, she will be disqualified. Her previous results will also go. Remember, every athlete signs a declaration which has all the rules, in which they state that they have read all the rules and they are okay with the rules and they are participating. And once you do that, then you will have to follow the rules. Whether in your eyes those rules are unfair or fair, that's another debate. The court could have taken a more compassionate view, and they can, going forward, and we'll have to wait for the detailed verdict, going forward can say, okay, maybe this rule needs to be tweaked, look at that. Or maybe even order the UWW to tweak those rules. But they can't change a result retrospectively. What happens to all those wrestlers previously who had been disqualified for a similar breach? We are talking about 100 grams. There were wrestlers for 50 grams also disqualified. What happens to that? So that is why it was a decision that CAS could not rule in favor of Vinesh Fogart, even though there were many arguments, very valid arguments that were put forward. And because they were spending some time, they were contemplating for a few days, it gave you hope that they were thinking on the lines. But what that tells you, that the arguments presented were very strong and presented quite forcefully at that, and probably which is what forced the arbitrator to spend even more time. But eventually, I think the law of the land prevailed. The Indian Olympic Association has come out and said that, listen, they are disheartened, as you'd expect. They were supporting Vinesh Fogart, so they will be disheartened. They've said that, listen, if you're going to pass such rulings, it's going to have grave repercussion for the sport, because what they're trying to hint at, that all athletes will, keep dehydrating themselves, punishing themselves to be at this stage. But these are things that are well known. The counter argument to that would be that, fine, then do not try and participate in weight categories much lower than your weight categories. I mean, these are rules, and there's a reason there's a weight category. And even for that 2-day argument that you present, the rules are like that because we are seeing it as 1 day versus 2 day. But I think UWW sees the entire competition as 2 days. They expect the athlete to be below 50 for the duration of 2 days. Yes, they cannot monitor you after every bout. That's why they've had it over 2 days. But the argument UWW can say is that, listen, you are saying Monday she was fine, so look at her result, but we look at it as a 2-day competition. And if she's competing in a 50 kilogram, then she needs to be below 50 gram throughout. And so that's why, instead of, many can argue have 3 weigh-ins, 4 weigh-ins, whatever, they decided on 2. And so you have to follow what they have said. The other question that will be on the minds of a lot of people, what is it that Vinesh can do? Can she appeal? Of course, any decision that comes, even when it comes like in the Supreme Court, you can always appeal that. But the chances of overturning a verdict are going to be minimum. So what Vinesh can do is now approach the Swiss courts and challenge that verdict. But again, going by past example, past precedents, the Swiss courts do not overturn decisions taken by CAS because they realize CAS is the specialist. They are a body that deal in these matters and they know better. So if CAS has taken a decision on sporting matters, seldom does the Swiss courts overturn that decision. If Vinesh would like, if IOA would like, they could reappeal that matter, but the chances of anything changing still remain grim. What that does is tells you the medal count for India, it remains 6. At no point can you take credit away from Vinesh Fogart. In our hearts, we will always remember the fact that she fought bravely, reached the final, beat the #1 seed, beat someone who was unbeatable, so as to say. We'll always remember that. But that we'll remember, it's always a short-term memory. I may remember, some of you may remember, but going forward 10, 20 years, we always look at the medal, and unfortunately, that's how the cookie crumbles. Once the detailed verdict is out, of course, I'll come up with another video. For the moment, Nikhil Naz signing off. If you enjoy our content, do give us a like, share it with your other sports-loving friends and anyone who's trying to seek more information about the Vinesh Fogart case. And yes, finally, don't forget to subscribe to Sports Today. Bye-bye.